Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video, and this is one I've been waiting to do for ages, and now it's finally here. It is time to preview the 2023 MotoGP season. This is honestly my favorite motorsport series in the world, for very obvious reasons, and finally it is here again. So why not let's get straight into it. So we got all 5 brands to talk about. Yes, there's 5 because Suzuki, of course, if you guys didn't know, pulled out of MotoGP. So it's now down to 5. So as I bring in my book here, so it looks like to me it looks like I'm reading you guys a bedtime story, but anyways, so here it is. So I'll do this in reverse Constructors Championship order. So we'll start off with our lovable team Honda. Of course, they brought in the two former Suzuki riders this year. Joan Mir, 2021 MotoGP World Champion, 2020 I should say, MotoGP World Champion Joan Mir, onto the Repsol Honda team, and Alex Rins with LCR Honda. Honda team as a teammate to Taka Nakagami. Of course, as we all know, last season, they had Paul Espargaro and Alex Marquez in. Last year, they only had 2 podiums last year, which ironically, one was at the start of the season at Qatar, and then one towards the end of the season with Marquez at Phillip Island. The one pole position, which was from Marquez in Motegi, combined out of the 4 riders, 20 top 10 finishes. Most of them were from Marquez, and with 10 of them. The rest of them had combined the other 10, and then 17 DNFs with the most being from Paul Espargaro with 5. So it looked like to me as though everybody was gushing this time last year about the new Honda. Everyone was saying, "Oh, the bike was fast," and Marc Marquez was saying stuff like, "Oh, I don't know why it's fast, but it's fast." And then as the season went on, we started to realise that new Honda was not as good as we all first thought. Despite, as I said, they had a couple of podiums and they did have a couple of top 10 finish. It had several drivers finish inside the top 10. All four of their riders finished inside the top 10 in races last year. It wasn't as good as it was first thought. Of course, Taka obviously missed races. Of course, we all know Marc Marquez missed races as well. It was a bit of an interrupted 2022 season, really, for Honda, and it was really, hopefully, it's the season where hopefully they start to get some development with the bike. And it's a new design bike, obviously, new winglets on there, new air intake on the front fairing. Everything's pretty much changed. Almost everything was changed on there, in terms of the front end. In pre-season testing, I'm counting this with all these pre-season testing. This was off of the Portimao pre-season test, not the one in Malaysia, of course. And and the fastest out of the lot for Honda was surprisingly Joan Mir, who ended up in the combined out of the 2 days in 13th when he did on the final day when he did a 138.762 with behind him being Marc Marquez and Alex Rins, with Taka ending up 20 quickest in combined times from combined out of the 2 days. Altogether, Honda had logged the second most laps out of the test with 597 laps combined out of the 4. And they had the equal second fastest bike in the speed trap in testing, 343.9 kilometers per hour. Jesus Christ, that is it's quick. Well, if that's quick, I'll wait until you get to the end of that. So yeah, and I'm concerned about Honda's ability to contend here. I mean, some people shockingly predicted Marc Marquez to win the championship, which was undoubtedly wrong because he missed like 4 or 5 races during the season when he underwent I think it was a 4th surgery on his arm, which hopefully he's gotten over those issues with, because he had issues with that for about 2-3 years now since he did it in 2020. Yeah, I don't think I'm not as bullish on how Honda's going to perform like a Renault is. If you have Marc Marquez saying that we have a long way to go till it's a title contender, and I said that's from an 8-time world champion who is the best the best rider in the modern era, ever since these 1000cc rules began in 2012. Began in 2012, I should say. He's been the dominant rider, and yes, he's had a lean run with injury in the last couple of years. For him to say that is big, but there was also news that came out during the middle of this week prior to the first round of Portimao, which at the time of recording had already done practice qualifying and the first ever sprint race, which I'll also get to in a minute. Say that a bad 2023 season could mean that Marquez could walk, as in walk away from the team. For some reason, I don't believe that will happen, because if he does, where will he go? I know with Alex Marquez going over to Gresini, which we'll get to later. Could he maybe go over to possibly to Ducati? I don't know. Or somewhere else, maybe go over to KTM, maybe a Red Bull KTM possibly seat, maybe if maybe the Jack Miller situation doesn't work out, but they got Pedro Acosta waiting in the wings anyway, so that's no point in that. So it's probably the only way for him to be in MotoGP for Marc Marquez to stay at Repsol Honda, and yeah, that's why I don't subscribe to to what was said by Honda management. I think Alberto Puig probably said this, or someone else, I don't know, that Marquez could walk if there's a bad 2023 season. I don't believe that. Don't subscribe to that at all. Yeah, so I don't think Honda are going to have a great season from what I'm expecting, but I still think that Marquez, I think that, as I said, those rumours about that what I think Puig said, I think it was Puig that said it, that Marquez could walk if it's a bad 2023 season. I don't think that's going to happen, so to speak. Moving on to our lovable orange team, lovable men in orange, KTM. Of course, they've also added a lot of changes to their rider lineup in both of their teams. They've retained the great man himself, Brad Binder. I mean, the most criminally underrated rider in the field. For him working wonders with that KTM, and he's joined by a new teammate, Jack Miller, who has gone from the factory Ducati team to the factory KTM team for 2023. Now Tech 3, it's had a bit of a name change at Tech 3. It's now called the Gas Factory team, with support from Gas, which is basically again another KTM because that's basically an RC16. I don't think it'll be fair to rebadge it as a Gas RC16. With their excuse me, with their riders riders Paul Espargaro coming back into the KTM fold after 2 years away with Repsol Honda, and the only rookie in the field this year, Augusto Fernandez, the reigning Moto2 world champion, stepping up to MotoGP this season. So it was a good season all around for KTM. Most of their results were basically from the factory team, because the Tech 3 team, it was very inconsistent with Raul Fernandez and Remy Gardner. Unfortunately, Remy is now in World Superbikes, and Raul Fernandez is in another team, which we'll get to soon. Of course, they had two wins last season, at both at the hands of Miguel Oliveira, both at Mandalika and in Indonesia, and at Buriram in Thailand. And then, of course, Binder had three podiums last year compared to Oliveira's 2, and then Binder had slightly more had more top 10s. He had 17 top 10 finishes compared to Oliveira's 10, which means combined out of the two, they had 27 top 10s. And then 7 DNFs, which is not bad considering it. Considering it really, with Gardner and Fernandez and Oliveira only having 2 retirements each, and then Binder only having the 1 retirement for the season. So Binder, of course, he's pretty much led for the last 2 years, led that KTM team. Yes, 2020, it was his rookie season anyways. He's pretty much carried that team on his back the last 2 years. And he carried it mostly again in pre-season testing at Portimao, but being the only KTM rider inside the top 10, with the other 3, Jack Miller in 17th, Paul Espargaro in 18th, and Augusto Fernandez in 22nd. Of course, been the fastest out of the KTM riders with a 138.480. Altogether, out of the 4 riders, between the 4 riders, they clocked 548 laps, the 4th most, or the 2nd least in terms of the riders, in terms of the five brands. And they were the 4th fastest in the speed trap, with their fastest being 340.6 k's per hour. Excuse me. So KTM, I think that I'm possibly speaking here that I think for me, the expectation, I think if I was Brad Binder, or for KTM, now that they have Jack Miller, who has experience on riding much more powerful bikes in the Dukes, for the last, 4 years. I think 2018 he started it with, and then 2022 he left. So about 4 or 5 years. He's been, and probably, and if you count his Honda ride when he was with Marc VDS in 2016 and 2017, maybe, I think the Honda back then was probably in the nuts of them and Ducati were the top 2 fastest in terms of in a straight line. I would believe. He's been on that, and I would assume KTM will probably be the same. So if I was Red Bull KTM, I would pretty much expect, because pretty much did anybody realise they finished second in the team's championship? The Red Bull factory team, KTM factory team, finished second in the team's championship behind the Ducati, on the factory Ducati team, and third behind them, which we'll get to shortly, as well in Aprilia. Not much to expect really out of Fernandez and Pol Espargaro. Yeah, I know. At a time of recording, Pol suffered a massive crash in practice, and we don't know when he's gonna come back. So hopefully he gets fit and gets well, and hopefully gets back on the bike very soon. So not much expected out of them really. Maybe the crazy odd top 10 finish maybe for Augusto, maybe, but not that much really. Really for the Austrian manufacturer. Speaking of Aprilia, let's move on to them, because they were so good last year that they have actually had made an extra 2 extra bikes. You guessed it. They have there are 2 teams with Aprilias this year, with RSGPs this year. The first one being the factory team, which has retained its lineup of Maverick Vinales and Alicia Spargaro, and and of course they've added a new team to their books this year, that being the former Yamaha RNF team, with two new riders this year in Raul Fernandez and Miguel Oliveira, of course, two KTM rejects. So my apologies if you're a Raul Fernandez fan or a Miguel Oliveira fan for calling them rejects. Probably not Raul Fernandez, because obviously he didn't like the atmosphere in that team anyways, because apparently he was that the Red Bull KTM team in Moto2 and the Tech 3 team was mostly favouring Remy Gardner. Ouch. And now he's in World Superbikes. Double ouch. So it was not like a breakout 2020 KTM like season for Aprilia, with the one win at Argentina, the 2 poles, both from Alicia Spargaro, and of course the 9 podiums that they had, 6 from Alicia and 3 from Maverick. And then also they I think they had the least amount of DNFs in this season with 3 last year, with 3, which you wouldn't say that sentence 3 or 4 years ago. Let's just put it that way. How I think they'll go in 2023. So before I do that, I'll go into the preseason testing. So the fastest fastest in Aprilia rider in the Portimao preseason test was Alicia Spargaro, who ended up P10 with a best time out of the 2 days of a 138.569. And then the other three, Maverick Vinales and Miguel Oliveira were behind him in 12th and 11th respectively, with Raul Fernandez down in P16 in that one. They logged the third most laps combined out of the four riders out of the 2 days of testing, with 556 laps, and were the other team that was the second quickest in a straight line with 343.9 k's per hour. I won't be surprised either if they take a step up or they take a step down compared to last year. Last year was massive progress, of course. The first time that they took a pole and won in the... they've come a long way in the last sort of maybe 12 to 18 months, where they took their first podium, where Leash took the team's first podium at Silverstone in 2021, got them their first pole and win in Argentina last year, and so on and so forth. And he was mostly in contention for the title, which is very, very rare to say from a rider that is riding an Aprilia. But at the end of the day, I think Alish and the team probably just ran out of steam, and just couldn't keep up with the pace that obviously that Fabio and Pecco were at. And they just ran out of steam, but it was a massive achievement to finish third in the team's championship, and finish third also in the constructors' championship, which is a great achievement for them. And hopefully, I hope that the former, hopefully what I said before, hopefully they do go to another level and hopefully win multiple races, win multiple poles, and be a big contender in the championship. But I also won't be surprised if they take a step down. Remember, KTM won multiple races in 2020, and finished, I believe, about third, I believe, in the Constructors' Championship, and then they went down to only a couple of wins, but finished sixth in the Constructors' Championship in 2021. So you never know, maybe they will take a step down, but hopefully that is not going to be the case for the lower ball, for the so-called other Italian team. So, moving on to the now you could probably say the only Japanese manufacturer in MotoGP now. That being Yamaha, because in the past few years, God knows how many years, probably every year ever since the MotoGP era started in 2002, they've always had a second Yamaha, second satellite team. It's been, Tech Free for many years. Then it was the old Petronas SRT team. Then it was the RNF team last year. Now they got none, because it's only down to the Yamaha factory team, the Monster Energy team of 2021 world champion Fabio Quartararo and Franco Morbidelli. So last year, it wasn't quite as a dominant season as it was in 2021, where we all knew they just definitely that rider combination of Fabio and that Yamaha was clearly clearly got the best out of it in 2021 and clearly won the championship. There was clearly problems with it at the start of 2022. but it was all erased when he eventually he took over the championship lead and pretty much held it. And I think he pretty much held it from probably, I think he took the lead in the championship around Portimao or Jerez, I believe. I think it's when he gained the championship lead, I believe. Or no, I think or maybe in France, I think, something like that. And he held it, and he held it until basically Phillip Island. So yeah, and then we all knew the collapse then when basically he held like this, like I think it was 30 odd point lead, and then at one stage Bagnaia was fifth in the championship at 91 points back, and then somehow he did these massive mistakes late, and then basically won, and then basically which cost him the championship. That mistake those two mistakes at Phillip Island ultimately cost him the championship in the end, because if he didn't make those mistakes, then probably it would have been much more of a thrilling title fight going into Valencia, which ultimately Pecco Bagnaia came out on top. Very quickly, we'll speak about the pre-season test in Portimao with them. Quartararo ended up the fastest out of the two. It had the third fastest time combined out of the 2 days of 1:38.302. Not surprisingly, Morbidelli was 19th. I mean, I found it quite sad, really, that the fall from grace. I don't think it's I think it's a very bad choice of words. Fall from grace. Just a big drop off for Franco Morbidelli from, challenging for the title, finishing runner-up in 2020 on a year-old bike, to now being mostly midfield pretty much, and maybe the odd day when he's running up at the front. But it's just quite sad, really, the way that Morbidelli's career looked like it was about to take off after the 2020 season, but injuries have caught up with him, and it's just sad. Hopefully he rediscovers that form. Hopefully in 2023 season. Not surprisingly, because they were down to two bikes, they had the least number of laps recorded with 362, and not surprisingly, they ended up last in the speed traps with 339.6 k's per hour. The only manufacturer not in the 340k per hour mark. I think for me, so the question is which Fabio are we gonna see? The one that was in 2021, or the one that was in 2022, where he gave up a 91 point deficit in a period of 7 or 8 races over Bagnaia? Will we see that? Which one will we see? I'm predicting we're gonna see a 2021, the 2021 version of Fabio, but even better. I think. I love the way that that Yamaha, have tested. Even there was even rumors that they were going to bring in a much more powerful engine to help with the straight line speed deficit, and then obviously trialing out some different aerodynamic packages over not only the Sepang test but also the Portimao test as well. So it'll open to change, and hopefully hopefully those ideas stick to hopefully in future Yamaha bikes. Hopefully for the next year or two. But I believe that I think we'll see the Quartararo from 2021, but maybe, as I said, better. Definitely, in my opinion. 4 manufacturers down, 1 more to go. As you guys would have noticed, once again, I had just talking about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. 14 bikes so far in this review, because Ducati once again have the other 8. Once again, they have 4 teams again for 2023. The first one being the main factory Ducati team, with reigning world champion Pecco Bagnaia. Great to see the number 1 back on the MotoGP grid. So glad it's back. Yeah, probably maybe the only time maybe Bagnaia will wear it. Probably it'll be like it will either be Stoner where he wears every time he wins a world championship, or be like Lorenzo when he wears it once and then that's it. So yeah, and he's joined by new teammate Enea Bastianini, who has moved from the Gresini Ducati team. Over the Pramac, they've retained their rider lineup of Julian Zarco and Jorge Martin. The Gresini team, they have retained Fabio Di Gianantonio, and of course brought in the other Marquez brother from the Honda camp in Alex. They brought him over to Gresini, and the final team, the Mooney VR46 team, which has retained its rider lineup of Luca Marini and Marco 2022 Rookie of the Year, Marco Bezzecchi. So not much to point out here. I mean, of course, they won the Triple Crown. Of course, they won the Constructors' Championship. They won the Teams' Championship with the factory team, and of course the Riders' Championship with Pecco as well. These are these ridiculous stats that come out of here. I'll just ignore the 30 combined DNFs they had out of the 4 teams. This is out of the 4 teams, mind you. 12 wins last year that Ducati. These are the stats that Ducati had. 12 wins, 8 from the factory team, 4 from Gresini. 32 podiums, 17 from the factory team, 8 for Pramac, 6 for Gresini, and 1 for the VR46 team. 15 pole positions, 6 from the factory team, and from Pramac, 2 from Gresini, and 1 from the VR46 team, and 88. That's right, 88 combined top 10 finishes for with the factory team having 20 and Pramac both having 26, Gresini with 15, and the VR46 team with 20. So the preseason testing we got a lot to go over here. So not surprisingly, 7 out of the 8 riders finished was in the top 10 combined fastest times. Bagnaia in 1st, Zarco 2nd, Marini 4th, Bastianini 6th, Bezzecchi 5th, Alex Marquez in 7th, and Jorge Martin in 8th. The only one was Fabio Di Gianantonio. He was 22nd fastest, but he brackets he didn't compete on the second day because of a crash on day 1. So if he had ran, that probably could have been quite easily. We could have seen all 8 Ducatis in the top 10 in the combined times on the Portimao test, and that's saying something. Here. So yeah, and not surprisingly, they led the field in all 3 of these stats. Of course, the fastest time through Bagnaia with a 1:37.968. The only rider in the test that got into the 1:37. Bonkers 784 laps logged between the 8 riders. That's the advantage of having 8 bikes on the grid, and the fastest. And the fastest in the speed traps, which was Jorge Martin at a staggering 347.2 kilometers per hour. They're just getting faster, ladies and gentlemen. So What's their expectation for 2023? Quite simple as this. Triple Crown again. That's their expectation. They've got 8 bikes for a reason, and I think their expectation is, I wonder if they want to get greedy here and maybe try at some point during the year have all 4 bikes have wins, which by the way, I think that could happen. I'll get to that later. We turn to my predictions in a bit. But definitely I can see Bagnaia and Bastianini get wins during the year. I could see Martin getting wins. Maybe Zarco possibly can get wins. I don't see. Maybe the most craziest race happens. Maybe Alex Marquez maybe gets a win for the Gresini team, and I can definitely see the VR46 team have a massive year. Which, by the way, I did hear news. I think this was out during the off season, I believe, or some of the late rounds, that apparently next year that the VR46 team would be riding Yamahas in 2024, which was announced by MotoGP, and I don't like that idea. I don't like it, because that is going to be a severe disadvantage to Marini and for Bezzecchi, because you could see Marini was 4th in pre-season testing, and Bezzecchi was 5th. So in terms, they're probably gonna do better than what they were last year. I mean, Phillip Island last year was the prime example that Bezzecchi and Marini got used to the Ducati GP. The GP22 for Marini's case and the GP21 for Bezzecchi's case. They, at some point, they were in 2nd and 3rd in the final laps. At some point in the last 10 laps, they were 2nd and 3rd. And then eventually they dropped down to 5th and 6th. They were in the lead pack for most, if not all of that race. I watched all of that race, by the way, and they were in the lead pack for all of that race. That just solidifies to me that they got and it wasn't as well. And there were more results as well, like Bezzecchi getting the pole at Buriram and then got the podium at Assen, which proved that these two got to grips with these new Ducatis, and that was just the example of how good these new Ducatis were, because they just basically got used to them. And then now that you throw those two on a Yamaha, they have to basically learn how the Yamaha rides, and it's just going to affect them long term. That's why I don't like that. I think, in my opinion, that's why I don't like it. So yeah, because even though in the long run, yes, it's restricting Ducati to only 3 teams is probably good enough, but to weaken the VR46 team by putting them on Yamahas, which are not the fastest bikes, and the fact that Marini and Bezzecchi are now used to Ducati machinery, that is just, I think, for both of those, I don't want to say it, but it is. It's basically, for those two, it's career suicide for me. In my personal opinion, that Marini and Bezzecchi would move from Ducati, which is the fastest bike in the field, and stats show the best bike in the field, to possibly one of probably, in terms of statistics wise, probably one of the worst bikes, in particularly in terms of straight line speed in the field in the Yamaha, is just not good. So yeah. So yeah, so back to their expectations. I think I said 2 things: Triple Crown once again, and maybe try and get Pramac and the VR4016 to at least win a race. So yeah, or at least get them some more podiums, at least. In my opinion. So that is all the teams. Now I'm gonna get to the predictions. I'll save the bold prediction to the very end because you guys will be shocked by this. So the disappointment of the season, who I think will be the most disappointing rider or team or manufacturer in the field. I've chosen the manufacturer, and I think it's going to be Aprilia. I think that they will take a step down compared to 2022, and because it happened with because historically speaking, it happened with KTM in 2021 compared to 2020. It's going to be a no-brainer that it will happen to Aprilia in 2023 this year compared to 2022. But as I said about them, I won't be surprised also if they go to the next level and win multiple races and be on the podiums regularly and contending for all 3 championships. I won't be surprised by that. But I had to put someone in the disappointment for category, and I put Aprilia in there. The biggest surprise, I've put KTM. I think they can win multiple races this year. And I have a feeling that both Binder and Miller can win races this season. I think Binder will benefit from Miller as a team, from Jack as a teammate, because obviously because he's been on the most powerful bike in the field for the last 4 years. The last 4 or 5 years, and he's probably going to arrive there with basically say to KTM, I want this, I want this, I want this, and I want this, and I want this on the bike, and I would assume Binder will be like, a fast bike in a straight line. I like that definitely. So. I think they can be a surprise. I think KTM will be the surprise of 2020, surprise of 2023. My pick to be world champion, it's probably going to be out of Pecco and Fabio again. But there's just something about Fabio Quartararo every time. It happened in 2020 when he had that mega meltdown in 2020. And he came back in 2021. He won a world championship. And then in 2022, he had not as big as a collapse as he did in 2020, but ultimately gave up a massive championship lead to a guy who was 91 points behind him halfway through the season, and he ended up stealing the title away. I hope that drives Fabio the anger and to say, I want my title back. And I think he will. I think definitely he will. No, undoubtedly, it's going to be Pecco and Fabio again to contend for this championship. But I have a feeling that I think the reason why he won the 2021 championship, I think he won most of his races in 2021 in the second half of the season. And he was ultra consistent. I mean, the only one, if I can remember, that he finished outside the top 10 in, I believe, was that race at Jerez where he had massive arm pump and it gave Jack Miller the win. That was the only bad race that he had until he wrapped up the title at Misano. But then compared to this year, he only won three races, and they were all in the early stages of the season. Of course, Portimao, Catalunya, and at the Sachsenring in Germany. But then after that, he didn't, he only finished on the podium a handful of times during the second half of the season. But, but I think that's no doubt about it. I think that's for Fabio. I think because traditionally speaking, Pecco has always been slow building in the first half of the season, and he gradually catches fire in the second half, and that's what's been the trend for him through 2021 and 2022. Is his second half of the season where by the time he gets multiple wins together in the second half of the season, that's when the Pecco train starts rolling along. It was too late in 2021. It came at just the right time in 2022. I think if Pecco wants to win back-to-back titles, he needs to improve his first half of the season. I mean, he hasn't done that. Pretty much all throughout his MotoGP career so far, he has not been done well in the first half of the season, and it's not until the second half of the season that's where that he's gradually built. He gets all-time high confidence. So I think he needs to win multiple. I think he needs to do better in the first half of the season if he wants to claim that second straight Riders' Championship. In terms of the others, I think Ducati, I believe, will win the Constructors and Teams Championship again, in my opinion. But I think the only one I think they won't win is the Riders' Championship. I believe Fabio Quartararo will win that championship. So the bold prediction, the massive bold prediction. I don't think Marc Marquez will finish top 5 in the Riders' Championship. It might be thinking yourself. It might be thinking, Braden, explain yourself. And here it is. I think what he said at the Sepang test is true, and you got to favour into account here. Yeah, I mean, it's not like 2019, like 2019 anymore, where he's just gonna win every single race by 3 or 4 seconds, or take the odd win on a final lap anymore. It's not that, that class is not that anymore. We've seen in the last 3 years, we've seen we've seen KTM and Aprilia step up. Ducati are now the best bike. Yamaha, of course, won the 2021 championship. And even before they pulled out, Suzuki won that double championship in 2020. So they've improved. And and to be honest, if you're standing there saying, "Oh, Marc Marquez is going to cakewalk this championship like he's doing in 2019," you're going to be kidding yourself, because he is not that guy anymore. He's not going to be the. I hope I get proved wrong, but a lot of guys had stepped up. Fabio stepped up. Pecco stepped up. If you guys think that he's gonna absolutely gonna cakewalk this championship, as I said, you're gonna kid yourself. So yeah. And I think for me, that Honda, I think it's going to be the same as 2022. We're all going to say, this Honda's great. This Honda's fantastic. Honda's fantastic. They're going to be probably a title contender. And then suddenly, by the end of the year, we go, they weren't as good as they said they were. And that is not going to be a good thing. So yeah. So moving on to the amount of winners I think we're going to have. I think we're going to have a new record in terms of the winners. I think we'll break into double digits and have 10 different winners. Those who I think will win a race, I believe, are, of course, as follows. I think Pecco Bagnaia, Anna Bastianini, Fabio Quartararo, Alicia Spargaro, Maverick Vinales. I think he's due for a win on that Aprilia, if it's actually any good. Brad Binder and Jack Miller both have wins for the Red Bull KTM team. Marc Marquez, basically, probably his only 2 wins will probably be Kota and the German Grand Prix and at the Sachsenring, because that's where he the only track he's basically dominant at. Jorge Martin, and I believe Marco Bezzecchi, I think, will give him their very first gives VR46 team their very first MotoGP win. I think he has the capability to doing that. He gave them their first podium. He gave them their first pole. It's only going to be appropriate that he gets them their first win. It's only going to be appropriate. So yeah. Those are the 10 riders I believe will win a race in 2023. And if I get all of these 10 right, I'll just be over the moon by the end of the season. Finally, moving on to explain the 2023 calendar. So obviously, as you guys all know, this weekend we are not at Qatar. We are at Portugal for the season opener. Then afterwards, next weekend, we go over to Argentina. Then afterwards, we go to the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas for the 3rd round. Then it's the beginning of the European Tour. We're beginning at Jerez. Then we move to Le Mans in France. Then we move off to wonderful Mugello for the 6th round of the championship. Then a difference here. We move off to the Sachsenring for the 7th round of the championship for the German Grand Prix. Then off to Assen for the Dutch TT. Then it's off to one of 2 new events on the MotoGP calendar, where for the very first time they're gonna go to Kazakhstan. I've seen pictures of the track. It just looks fantastic, by the way. It's gonna be. I hope it's gonna be great racing over there. After that, they go over to Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. Then over to Spielberg in Austria at the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix. Then off to the San Marino Grand Prix, to Zano Circuit, World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli for the San Marino Grand Prix. Then, I should say before then, I forgot to read this out, that we head back to Spain at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona for the Grand Prix of Catalunya. Then off to the San Marino Grand Prix at Misano, I should say. Then off to their first trip to India at the Buddha International Circuit, which you F1 fans might know. I would just love to see how fast those Ducatis are going to get down that long back straight. I would just love to know how fast they're going to go around there, down that back straight. Which is basically the start of the flyaways. Afterwards, they head to Motegi in Japan. Then off to Mandalika in Indonesia. Of course, last season it was at the start of the year. This time it's towards the end of the season. Then they jet down here in Australia, Phillip Island, for the Australian Motorcycle Grand Prix. Then off to Thailand at Buriram for the 18th round. Then Malaysia. Then off to Sepang in Malaysia for the Malaysian Grand Prix. Then Qatar moves from the traditional season opener to the penultimate round of the championship. I hope that is also going to be a night race, but I won't be surprised. but I would assume probably it will be a night race. And the season traditionally ends, of course, at the Ricardo Tumo circuit in Valencia for the finale of the season. And it's going to be extra races because, as I said earlier, there's going to be sprint races, which at the time of recording, they already had their first one at Portimao yesterday, last night. So that is just about it for this video. By the time this video comes out, we've already had round 1. But hopefully I will try and maybe get it out as quickly as possible, and hopefully maybe just get through the Moto2 and Moto3 reviews of the season. Like this video, share to anybody who's a MotoGP fan or a Honda fan or a Ducati fan, or maybe if you're a Pecco Bagnaia fan or a Fabio Quartararo fan. Comment down below who is your tip to win the MotoGP World Championship. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think it'll be Marc Marquez? Do you agree with me in picking Fabio? Do you think it'll be Pecco or someone completely different? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And one last thing, somewhere down there, click on the big red button which is labeled subscribe. But until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later, and wherever you may be, may the sun or the moon shine on your favourite rider in 2023.